What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over the dawn of DC. Of course, as y'all know, the dawn of DC is basically the new beginning for DC Comics in the new year of 2023. Now, with the dawn of DC has given us a lot of different series so far. Superman, Action Comics, Green Arrow, but now it's time for us to cover Cyborg. Yes, guys, Cyborg is back with his own title once again. Now, this is, I want to say, volume 3 for Cyborg, because he did have a series back in the New 52, and he had one more in DC Rebirth as well. And matter of fact, we covered the entire DC Rebirth Cyborg series on our channel. So by the way, go check it out real quick. Either way though, this is basically Cyborg getting his own book again, going on his own adventures again, but on top of that is him going back to Detroit, where he is basically from, and of course, he will be the hero of that city, just like how Batman is the protector of Gotham City. But this is a new beginning for Cyborg. And honestly, when it comes to the first issue, it's very interesting with what they're trying to do with the character of Cyborg. And you see what I mean as we go through this book. Now, to go ahead and begin today's video, we actually do pick up with Mammoth and Giz. Now, these are two characters that the Teen Titans have fought many times over the years in DC Comics. Now, sometimes you do have Cyborg on his own when it comes to dealing with these guys, but either way though, these are characters that have been around for a good while in DC Comics. Now, with that being said though, of course, they're causing trouble in Detroit, the home city of Cyborg, and you do have Cyborg step in to protect his city. Now, while you have Cyborg basically fighting against these two characters, you do have somebody call up Cyborg over and over again, and that would be Sarah Charles. Now, Sarah Charles is actually very important, and the reason why, because back in the DC Rebirth series we covered, she was basically the girl who Cyborg used to date before he became Cyborg. But when he became Cyborg, we learned that his father had wiped certain memories out of the mind of Cyborg when he was being turned into Cyborg, to kind of help Cyborg ease through the process of turning into a half-man, half-machine character. Now, Cyborg did remember later on that he did date Sarah Charles, and they did start dating one another once again at the end of DC Rebirth, but right now you have her calling up Cyborg over and over again because she has bad news. Now, of course, while he's fighting against Mammoth and also Giz, he keeps putting the call on voicemail. Like, hey, go to voicemail. I'll answer the call. I'll call her back later on. But once Cyborg is able to actually deal with Mammoth and also Giz, well, that's the moment he does answer the next call from Sarah Charles, and she has some bad news for him. So you do have Cyborg go see Sarah Charles. Now, when he sees Sarah, you do have Sarah tell Victor that his father is dead. Now, this is actually very huge because Victor's dad, Solias, has always been around in DC Comics, like literally always been around when it comes to the character of Cyborg. And matter of fact, it was Solias who helped Victor turn into Cyborg after Victor got badly injured. Now, with all that being said though, in every single series, and we have seen this a lot, it's always the same thing. At the very beginning of a series or a storyline, Cyborg and his father, they just don't get along. They have a bad relationship. Now, the reason why, because Cyborg's mother, Eleanor, because basically what happened was when she first gave birth to Victor, they were a very happy family. They were so in love with one another. The problem was, though, Solias wanted Victor to be like him, a scientist. Now, Victor was very smart, but Victor loved sports more. And when it came to Solias, sports was a pointless thing. And so you had Solias not really be close to his son, all because of sports. Now, Eleanor was still there for her son, Cyborg's mother, but the problem was she got sick. And of course, before she had died, Solias tried his best to find her a cure. We learned all of this in DC Rebirth. But unfortunately, he could not find her a cure, so she still died. Now, after she died, Victor and Salai's relationship even got worse, where basically Salai did not try to have any time with his son Victor at all. Now, once Victor got badly injured, of course, you had Salai step in and gave Victor a new life, Cyborg. And so that is how basically Victor became Cyborg in a quick little rundown. There were other things involved, but hey, later on. Either way, though, when it comes to Victor and Salai, even though Salai did save his son's life, Victor hates his dad because the Victor, he's kind of like, you should have let me die. Because now here I am stuck in this half man, half machine body. And this is what I mean. Every single series, it's the same thing over and over again. Oh, I'm mad at my dad because he saved my life because I'm in this cyborg body. Which honestly, I do understand. But this storyline does get recycled too many times. And right now, it's being used all over again. Where basically you have Victor kind of tell Sarah that when it comes to his father, that he was more a father to her rather than to him. Now for Sarah, that was just the wrong thing to say because that is still his father, that he should be there for his father at the funeral because his dad is now dead. His dad had a heart attack. You should be there for your father because he did try his best after you became Cyborg. He realized that when he almost lost you, how much he actually cared for you. But either way, you do have Cyborg tell Sarah that he'll be there at the funeral. Now that is the moment where we actually pick up with Estelle Green. Now Estelle Green is actually going to be very important, it seems like, for this series. And what I mean by that is, basically, it does seem like she's your YouTuber who gets on live YouTube, whatever, and she basically talks about different events in her city or area she lives in. Now, of course, right now, with her being Detroit, her first topic is talking about the idea that Cyborg came back to Detroit, but is it a good thing that he's back in Detroit? And the reason why she said that because after Cyborg had basically dealt with the bad guys from earlier, he just dipped out. Now, we do know why, because he got word that his father died. But for her and the rest of the public, they have no idea that his dad died. And so, of course, right under her is her saying, look, after he had handled those bad guys, he just left. He did not stay behind to help clean up his mess. That is wrong for a superhero. Now, to her, she also believes that Cyborg is only here because he wants some good press. He wants to be out there being a hero so that people can basically take pictures of him to make himself look good. Now, on top of that, she also hates the idea that the bad guys from earlier are not going to leave Detroit until Friday. They're being held at Star Labs. And in her case, that's a bad idea because that means sooner or later, those bad guys are going to break out free and they're going to cause more problems for Detroit down the road. Now, she does talk about a character known as Jamie Korkmaz. Now, Jamie Korkmaz does seem like your regular lawyer who's going to be out there to help you in Detroit if you basically have been affected by a superhero supervillain fight. And so if you've been injured or you lost something thanks to a battle between a hero and a villain, just give this guy a call. It was a quick little discussion about this character, but then she moves on to another character, and that is Marcus Wilcox. Now, Marcus Wilcox is the owner of a company known as Solus. With that being said, though, it does seem like Solus is trying to revamp Detroit, make Detroit better, and trying to put Detroit back on the map. The problem is, though, he's kind of attacking some low-income areas and pushing families out of those areas to kind of rebuild those areas to make it better so that Detroit looks nicer and clean. But of course, for Estelle, she's kind of like, that is the wrong thing to do because now you're adding up the numbers to homeless people because they're losing their homes because you're basically removing them to fix those areas up to just make Detroit look nice. Now, that is the moment we do see Cyborg actually go meet up with his therapist, and that would be Dr. Sutton. Now, Dr. Sutton is going to be around possibly for later books as well, but for right now, all we do know that she is his therapist. And on top of that, we also find out that he has been going to her for a very long time, actually. And so For him to come back to her is something very important, which of course is the death of his father. And she knows that when it comes to him and his father, their relationship wasn't the strongest. Matter of fact, it was probably one of the weakest she's seen. And so it's kind of her realizing that with the death of his father, it's her realizing, okay, how are you able to handle something like that? And you have Cyborg begin to talk about the funeral, telling us that this therapy session does take place after the funeral. Now, when it comes to the funeral was used as a way to kind of basically do a recap on the life of Cyborg to help out new readers who are basically jumping into the character who don't truly understand who the character actually is. And so the recap was kind of used to show, here's some great things about Cyborg, but also why Cyborg and his father's relationship is not that great. And matter of fact, a lot of those things we talked about earlier in the video is being shown right here, just a couple more things added into it. Either way though, you do have Cyborg say that he did run into Marcus. Now, Marcus is a guy who just arrived in Detroit, and basically he has a company known as Solus that is trying to revamp Detroit thanks to technology, but also trying to revamp areas, the low-income areas of Detroit. Now, this is Marcus coming to Cyborg for two reasons. One, because Marcus and Cyborg actually went to high school together. But on top of that, though, it is also Marcus coming to Cyborg saying, thanks to your dad helped me get my company off the ground. And so without him, my company would not be here. And so I want you to stop by and see what your father and I had basically built together. Now, when it comes to Cyborg, he's kind of like, no. I learned a long time ago that any kind of business my father has done is better for me to basically stay away from those things completely. But getting back over to the therapy session that Cyborg is having with Dr. Sutton, you do have Cyborg basically admit that he feels relieved that he was able to actually talk about how he felt about his father. But on top of that, he does feel like he now has the ability to make choices, something that was taken away from him because of his father. Ever since Cyborg had became Cyborg, his dad was always there. And it seemed like his dad always had the ability to make choices for Cyborg, but Cyborg could not make any choices for himself. But even though Cyborg said he feels relieved, happy that he has the ability to make choices again, he does feel bad about the idea that his father is dead. But you do have Dr. Sutton kind of tell Cyborg that maybe it's time for you to let go of all your anger and hatred towards your father to make yourself feel completely good so that it would not be a burden on you in the future. Now, you do have Cyborg basically go back to his old house where him and his dad and mother used to live in when they were growing up together. Now, while you have Cyborg there, he does kind of look around at the different memories. But while you have Cyborg looking around the house and kind of remembering different things about this house, you have another robot making their way towards the house, which kind of tells us like, okay, something big is about to happen. Like something about this robot is going to shock us to basically leave us on a cliffhanger because this is the last section of the book. And so while you have the story continue on with Cyborg looking around, checking the place out, you then have the robot actually enter the house. Now the robot does try to catch Cyborg off guard, but Cyborg realized that someone else was in the room or the house, and so he hid and actually came behind the robot to do a surprise attack on the robot. The problem is though, you have the robot turn to Cyborg and say this right here, Victor, son? And it's kind of like, wait a second, why did this robot just call Cyborg son? Did Solia Stone somehow upload his consciousness into the mind of this robot? Or is this robot just pretending to be Solia Stone? What in the world is going on? But for Victor, he's kind of like, that's my dad's voice. why in the world does this robot have my dad's voice? And so with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.